Imagine waking up tomorrow and being 25. No warning, no countdown, no extra chances. You open your eyes and suddenly your teenage years are over. What would you regret? The things you did or the things you never did? Most teenagers think they're wasting time in obvious ways, but they're not. The real problem is much harder to notice, and by the time most people see it, they're already years behind. Today, I'll show you the 5 traps that quietly steal your teenage years and why almost nobody notices them happening. The biggest lie teenagers believe isn't "I'm too young," it's "I'll do it later." The scary part? Most people don't realize that every later is actually a decision, wherein the more laters they have, the more they actually won't end up doing anything. Every time you delay something important, you're casting a vote for who you'd become, and that's where most people think the problem ends. But it doesn't. I must not be the only one who had a lot of situations where they'd end up finding themselves saying, "How I wish I started this earlier." And one perfect example I have of this is actually starting YouTube. When I first started my YouTube journey, I was already 20 years old. Some may say that I was still young, and it still isn't too late. However, as someone who have always consumed content, that would only mean that I could have always started the journey earlier. And just imagine where that could have brought me. In my case, most of the niches that I have done were in the gaming niche, and I have always played games ever since I was a young one, which means that I have literally started my YouTube journey at any given point in time. Since I didn't know a thing regarding editing, YouTube, SEO, and all of that when I started, anyways, I literally just learned it as I go. And yep, the next trap is even worse, wherein most teenagers aren't choosing bad habits, they're having them chosen for them. Think about this. The average teenager can spend thousands of hours consuming content they'll never remember in the future. Literally just countless hours of doom scrolling without really noticing how fast the time actually goes by. Not because they're lazy, but because modern platforms are designed to win attention. And here's what's dangerous. The real cost isn't the time we lose, it's actually the abilities we've lost. Every hour we spend passively consuming is an hour not spent building. And after years of repetition, this is where you'd actually notice that something is wrong. You've stopped training skills and you've started training distraction. That's why many people feel unable to focus, not because they're broken, but because they've practiced distraction for years. This is literally what happens whenever you can't even start working simply because you feel like just laying in bed, doom scrolling, watching whatever you'd like, play games, and you literally won't be able to do anything else at all. At the same time, this can also happen when you're already there trying to go and do something. You'd suddenly get bored or distracted by something else, and you just end up not finishing your work at all as well. But here's the twist nobody talks about. Distraction isn't the biggest problem. It's where that distraction leads. Because there's another system pushing you in the same direction. School rewards compliance. Algorithms reward consumption, and social groups rewards fitting in. Unfortunately, very few things reward experimentation. That's a problem because experimentation is exactly what your teenage years are for. Most adults think that their advantage would be more money, more experience, and more confidence, but they're wrong. The thing they want back is cheap failure, wherein when you're young, mistakes are inexpensive. You literally can keep failing. You can also change your mind, then start over and try again. At the end of the day, it's the teenagers that's willing to look stupid for the next 12 months in order to gain a skill that can hopefully change in the next 20 years. But most people don't take advantage of this because they don't see the bill. Not yet, and that's where the next trap appears. Here's what makes wasting your teenage years so dangerous. Nothing bad happens immediately. Miss one workout, nothing happens. Waste one afternoon, nothing happens. Delay one goal, nothing happens. That's why it's easy. The consequences arrive late. Years late. Literally to the point that you won't notice it at all as you go by. Then one day, boom! You're just in there regretting something you wish you could have done a lot differently. And then one day, you meet someone your age. They started learning a skill at 15 and you didn't. Now the gap is impossible to ignore. And suddenly what felt like small decisions becomes visible. This is why people's biggest regrets aren't usually mistakes. It's the opportunities they've missed, the businesses they've never started, the skills they've never learned, and the risks they've never taken. Because eventually that future arrives. And that's when most people discover the final trap. Most teenagers who realize all of this makes the same mistake. They think, okay, so what's the perfect path? but there isn't one. The people who get ahead usually just do these three simple things. They learn difficult skills, they take care of their body, and they create more than they consume. But that's not where the real secret lies. The real secret is simply movement. They start before they're ready, they learn before they're confident, and they build before they're qualified. Because clarity rarely comes first, action does. And this literally has been what I have been applying for myself ever since. Unfortunately, the one regret that I have only have is that I didn't know nor thought about any of these when I was still a teenager. It really is an unfortunate scenario if you were never exposed to any of the other possibilities that you could be doing in life, especially early on. On the other hand, though, one thing I am most proud and confident of is the sheer fact that even if I started late in my standards, whichever idea pops out of my mind, I immediately take action. Do what needs to be done, head first, and literally just locks right in that moment. Literally without thinking about failure or what happens when it doesn't work and any of that. Literally just try everything and anything. Don't be scared, especially if failing is only for free. One day, your teenage years will end. Quietly, literally without a single sign, and you won't even notice it. And years from now, you'll meet a version of yourself that you have built from all the decisions you have made from the past couple of years. Now, the question isn't whether that future version exists, because it does, and it will. The question is whether you'll be proud to meet them, because your future isn't created in dramatic moments. It's created in ordinary days, and those ordinary days are happening right now. So what are you gonna do? Start now.